So Lydia is a senior scientist at the Green Science Policy Institute, which is based in the USA. The Institute uses peer-reviewed science to collaborate with other non-profit scientists and decision makers in business and government to reduce the use of harmful chemicals in everyday products. So Lydia, we're delighted to have you with us, and it'll be really good to hear some success from other parts of the world.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. So yeah, as was just stated, we worked on getting the furniture flammability standard in the United States updated to a safer standard without flame retardant usage as part of our model, using sound science and communication to affect change to improve environmental health. So in the United States, the first furniture flammability standard was called California Technical Bulletin 117, and it was followed across the United States and Canada, even though it was just a California standard, just because California controls so much of the market, starting in 1976 all the way through 2014. And this furniture standard required the foam within furniture to withstand a small open flame for 12 seconds. And to do that, the foam tended to be about 5% flame retardant chemical, a pretty high concentration. Importantly, though, there wasn't a significant fire safety benefit to this standard. If you think about it, a source of fire in your living room, that's a small open flame via candle, even if it falls over, it's not going to fall into the middle of the foam on the inside of your couch, right? Fires start at the upholstery, at the fabric level first. And so this standard just wasn't matching real world scenarios. And so that was the beginning of why people started looking into a way to update the standard. But given that the furniture had about 5% flame retardant in the foam, it's really important to know that it doesn't stay there. So humans can be exposed in multiple ways. So first of all, by sitting on furniture, there could be some dermal exposure directly to people. The flame retardants also don't stay within the foam. They readily evaporate and then get into the air where they can be inhaled. They can also fall out into dust or particles in the air where they can also be inhaled. Children in particular have more hand-mouth behavior, crawl on the floor, things like that, so they can accidentally consume the contaminated dust as well. And so children can have really high levels of flame retardant exposure that way. And then lastly, Joe talked about the life cycle impacts of flame retardants, and that's super important because the more flame retardant usage that we have, the more eventually gets its way into our food and our water. And so then we have another chance to directly ingest the flame retardants at that level as well. So in the United States, for our furniture flammability standard, we saw a series of harmful flame retardants being replaced with another set of flame retardants that were just as harmful. There just wasn't data on it yet. And so we see this series of regrettable substitutions. And all of the flame retardants that used to be used in our furniture were persistent, bioaccumulative, and toxic. So clearly not chemicals that we want in furniture where they can be readily released, like I just discussed. And all of these flame retardants have been associated with multiple health harms across the population, such as cancer, neurotoxicity, as well as developmental and reproductive health problems. So a plethora of issues, which is another reason for wanting to update our standard. But besides these direct health impacts, when products with flame retardants burn, it actually makes matters worse. So when foam with flame retardants burns, the flame retardants actually increase the amount of smoke and toxic gases. When organohalogen flame retardants are used, it increases the production of really carcinogenic compounds called dioxins and furans. And all of this increased smoke makes rescue more difficult, and it also increases injuries due to inhalation of these smokes, which is the most common source of injury during home fires. And so one of our colleagues who used to be deputy chief at the Boston Fire Department said that a better name for flame retardants would be smoke accelerators due to this property. And so there's been a great amount of support from firefighters in the United States when we were updating our standard. So what would be better than our old TB117 open flame standard that didn't have a significant fire safety benefit and that led to flame retardant usage? Well, they started to consider what was actually the most common source of house fire besides those in kitchens, you know, the ones concerning furniture, and it was smoldering sources. So think a cigarette or a small space heater. Those were the most prevalent sources. And so the smolder standard, which came to be called TB117 2013, actually protected most fabric ignitions from those common sources, and it protected the flammable foam on the inside of furniture so that it didn't catch fire in the first place. And this resulted in the standard being able to be met without the use of flame retardant chemicals. So it was really a win-win for fire safety and our health. The government in California, our Bureau of Household Goods and Services, did a lot of work to make sure that this new smolder standard would be successful and a healthier, better standard for fire safety as well. So they reviewed multiple studies, they conducted their own cost benefit of furniture barriers and found that an open flame test would not be helpful, that the smolder test was good. They also made sure that the smolder test would be repeatable and reproducible by different labs so that it could actually be enforced across the United States, and they found that this was the case. And then lastly, there was a California Environmental Quality Act evaluation also finding that this new smolder standard would be beneficial. So it was a lot of work by a lot of people in our government as well as other scientists to find that this new smolder standard would be a big improvement over our old open flame test. So some of their other research findings were that, as I mentioned before, an open flame test wasn't really good when you think about the flammability of the upholstery cover fabric and how it relates to the flammable foam underneath. And this was confirmed both by the Bureau as well as our Consumer Product Safety Commission, agreeing that the flammability of the upholstery fabric played a more important role than the flammability of the foam. They also agreed and found that the foam with flame retardants increased smolder propensity, leading to more smoke and toxic gases. So the journey in the United States towards a better flammability standard was really a collaboration between many different sectors. We had environmental scientists and fire scientists agreeing that a smolder standard was best. Obviously, public health advocates wanted a standard that would lead to reduced flame retardant exposure, since levels of flame retardants in United States residents were so much higher than other parts of the world due to this flammability standard. And really importantly, the furniture and foam manufacturers, as well as their respective trade associations, very much wanted a standard that would still make their furniture fire safe, but also reduce exposure for their workers, because their workers were highly exposed, as well as the customers that they were selling their products to. And of course, our government representatives wanted a better and safer standard, and that's why they put so many resources into finding a better one. The only group that was not supportive of the change was the flame retardant industry. Obviously, they have a big financial conflict of interest because our furniture used to be such a high source of income for them. And so they spent a documented $23.2 million just over 5 years in California itself, trying to prevent the change to a standard that would reduce flame retardant usage. Ultimately, what really helped was that the Chicago Tribune published a series finding that these flame retardant manufacturers were being very untruthful when they were trying to fight against changing our standard. And so the subtitle here kind of says it all. It says, a deceptive campaign by industry brought toxic flame retardants into our homes and into our bodies, and the chemicals don't even work as promised. So with that and a lot of hard work from many different people, our flammability standard was changed in 2013 to increase fire safety without flame retardant chemicals. So overall, this success in the United States was when California changed the standard in 2013. We had national compliance mandated beginning in June 2021, but it had already been filed as a de facto standard since the 2013 update in California. So our furniture has been fire safe since a year or two after 2013 without the use of flame retardant chemicals, and that's been confirmed by peer-reviewed studies by our government scientists finding reduced flame retardant levels, basically down to 0 in our furniture. It's also really important to note that there hasn't been any increase in furniture fires since 2013. Overall, fires, domestic fires in the United States and pretty much worldwide, as the graph that Joe showed, have been coming down, and that's due to decreased smoking, improvements in fire alarms, more buildings having sprinkler systems. So it's really a wide variety of preventing fires from starting in the first place, and then having a flammability standard that matches real world scenarios and leads to no exposure to flame retardants. And so I'll end with a note just saying that we knew back in 2013 that flame retardants were really harmful, but since then, just in 1 decade, there's been so many more studies showing both the ineffectiveness of flame retardants in many cases, like furniture, as well as the health harm of flame retardants. And so that's why it's really important to update standard in the United States and then now in the UK as well, for one that's fire safe without flame retardant usage. That's all. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you so much, Lydia. That was really interesting.